All right, let's dive right in. I want you to imagine a world where absolutely everything, and I mean everything, from God all the way down to a single rock, had its own specific, unchangeable place in the cosmos. Now, this wasn't just some abstract philosophy. This was the operating system for an entire age. Today we're exploring the great chain of being, this incredibly rigid yet surprisingly fragile worldview of the Elizabethans, all framed as one grand cosmic play.
And this quote, it cuts right to the heart of the drama, because even at the very top of this supposedly perfect system, there was this deep, gnawing anxiety. The monarch, who was meant to be the absolute anchor of stability, knew just how easily the entire performance could come crashing down. That's the central tension we're going to unpack.
So, let's set the stage. Act 1. Here we meet the main character of our story. But here's the twist. It's not a person. It's an idea. The idea that the entire universe was a divinely written script, a perfect hierarchy where every single thing had its own role to play.
And here it is, the great chain of being. Now, this wasn't just an org chart for the universe. For Elizabethans, this was a spiritual reality. Think of it as a cosmic ladder designed by God himself to ensure perfect harmony. Every single link was essential, and its position was absolute. And this hierarchy was crystal clear, totally non-negotiable. At the very top, you've got God. From there, it flows down through the angels, then to humanity, which, by the way, had its own ladder of kings, nobles, and commoners. Below us, you find the animals, then plants, and right at the bottom, inanimate matter. You were born into your link, and that was your part to play, for life. End of story. So here's the crucial point. The one rule you never ever break. You do not mess with the chain. Trying to climb up a link, or worse, severing one entirely, that wasn't just treason. It was a sin against God and nature itself. It was an act that threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality.
And Shakespeare just illustrates this perfectly. When he wrote Macbeth, he wasn't just being dramatic for the sake of it. See, when Macbeth murders King Duncan, he doesn't just kill a man, he snaps a critical link in the chain. And what happens? The whole cosmos glitches. The sun goes out, and horses, animals, way down the chain, start acting in these horrifying, unnatural ways. Nature itself is mirroring the moral chaos of humanity.
Okay, let's move to Act 2 and see how this all builds. If the universe is a stage, well, then the monarch is its undisputed lead actor. They weren't just a political leader, they were seen as God's chosen representative right here on Earth, the single most important human link in that whole cosmic chain.
And this is the doctrine that gave the monarch all that power, the divine right of kings. Their authority didn't come from the people, or even from military strength alone. No, it was a direct mandate from heaven. So to challenge the king was, quite literally, to challenge God himself.
Now, to make all this work, Elizabethan law came up with this really fascinating, kind of high-concept idea: the king's two bodies. The monarch had a body natural, the physical person that could get sick and die, just like you or me. But they also had a body politic, an immortal, symbolic body that represented the nation itself. And that body could never die.
And this is why that matters so much. This two-body theory gave the monarch a kind of sacredness. They weren't just another person, they were the living embodiment of the state, a symbol of the collective conscience which placed them fundamentally outside and above every other individual. So how did they actually convince everybody of this sacred status? Well, through what we would today call some seriously powerful branding and propaganda. Rulers used a whole language of symbols in their portraits. Holding an orb, that wasn't just holding a fancy ball, it meant you were literally holding the world in your hand. Posing with the sun and moon meant your power was as constant and natural as the heavens themselves.
And this really reached its peak with Queen Elizabeth. In some portraits, she's shown literally embracing the entire universe, positioning herself as a Salvatrix Mundi, a savior of the world. The message was unmistakable. She wasn't just ruling England. Her reign was holding the very cosmos together in a state of perfect, stable order.
But, no system lasts forever without being challenged. And in Act 3, a powerful new force enters the stage, the questioning spirit of the Renaissance. Those old medieval certainties start to crack as new humanistic ideas about individualism and free will begin to take hold.
And this brings us to the central dilemma of the age. Do you follow the divine script you've been given and just accept your fixed place in the great chain? Or do you dare to think for yourself, to question, to feel, and maybe, just maybe, write your own story? This question created a deep, profound cultural anxiety.
This slide just captures that shift perfectly. The medieval heroes' challenges were usually external, slay the dragon, defend the castle. They knew their role. But the new Renaissance hero, their greatest battle was internal. They were torn, fighting against themselves, caught between their duty to the old order and the messy, powerful new realities of personal logic and emotion. And there is no better example of this than Hamlet. He's told by a ghost, a voice from the old world of fate, to go avenge his father. But he hesitates. He questions, he thinks, he feels. His famous line, "To be or not to be," that's the ultimate Renaissance question. His struggle between fate and free will perfectly embodies the anxiety of this entire changing world.
So, let's move to our final act, where we really see the immense personal cost of all this. What was it actually like to be that single link at the very top of the chain, holding everything together? Well, in a word, it was crushing.
And this really gets to the core of it. Being a monarch wasn't a job, it was a performance. A constant 24/7 role you had to play on a national stage, where every single word and action was scrutinized. You weren't a person anymore, you were a symbol.
And that performance came at a heavy price. Total isolation from ordinary human connection, and the terrifying absolute responsibility for an entire nation's fate. The monarch was, in a very real sense, carrying the weight of a nation's soul on their shoulders. One mistake, one flubbed line, and the whole play could just collapse into chaos.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Despite all the talk of divine right and cosmic certainty, the rulers themselves knew the truth. They knew that the order they fought so hard to maintain was incredibly fragile. Their power, their stability, the world they built, it could all be dismantled the moment they took their final bow.
And all this really leaves us wondering, right? When so much of leadership is a performance, a constant projection of power and control, who is the real person hiding behind the crown?